All right, we are live. We're good to go.
Okay, all right. No countdown today. Okay, all right. Hello, Bob Boland here. I think you all know me. Filling in for Mayor Mike tonight, who is taking a badly or a well-earned trip over to the western side of the state. So anyway, he will be back in the saddle before too long. The work session tonight, we have 3 items: St. Paul's Catholic Church, pandemic update, and a look at our 2020 revenue. So with that, the Catholic Church, is there any representative from the Catholic Church?
No, I told him he didn't need to be here tonight,
Okay.
but he could certainly tune in and listen.
Oh, all right.
But it's pretty much spelled out, I think, in their letter.
Yeah, what they're looking for. And I think probably everybody on the screen here has a copy of the request from the Catholic Church
They
looking
should, yeah.
for sort of a what I would say is a structural change to our rates, which I think probably in my mind would not be advisable at this point. And looking at the usage, and I'm taking the lead here a little bit, although I've just been catching up on this afternoon. The summer consumption on this at this particular facility at the Catholic Church equals some of our pretty robust restaurant operations for a fairly small lawn area. And it's around 1,300 gallons a day during the summer. In fact, a little over that some summers, including last year. Let's see, no, last year was down a little bit. That was in 18. But nevertheless, we're looking at essentially 1,000 gallons a day in the summertime for a pretty small landscape. And I assume that's the factor. If you can all see the numbers there. It would seem to me, and I think it seems to most of us, that the only ready explanation that may be right or wrong, but probably right, I think, is a major leak in the irrigation system, because it's certainly for the summer months. The amount of usage is phenomenal unless you're growing rice or something, and it's just it's an amazing thing. Also, running the numbers, I mean, it literally is equal to some of our larger, more robust restaurant operations, not the biggest ones like Tommyknockers, where they do use a huge amount, but nevertheless, it's far above explanation other than a leak. And their request, if you read Wonder's letter, would result in a savings every pay or every billing cycle of a little over $100. If they could reduce its usage, they could save a few $100s every billing cycle. And so it seems to me that it's logical to go back to the church and request that they do an investigation to see where that water is going, because there's no other explanation that I can come up with. So anyway, input, please.
No, I agree with you, Bob. You know, that, you know, it has to be a leak in the irrigation system. I've never been by there and seen any bubbling up, but yeah, that is a lot of water, you know, and I got very good sized yard. I don't use near that much.
No.
So yeah, I would be with you on a recommendation that they supply us with a certified landscaper to verify if it is leaking.
Agreed, it has to be a leak.
Yes, that you're right. I think there's a lot of alluvial sediments in that area, and the water would be going down pretty well when you look at where we're dug up there west of the near Colorado Boulevard, west of the Gold Rush Center. Lots of big round river rocks in there. And it could be just a lot of sand and gravel under that church that it just goes straight down into the water table. And
Hey, Bob,
yeah,
do we lend any assistance when this situation comes about, that not that we're responsible to find the leak, but maybe that just prove to them that water's going through your meter and you have all your valves off?
yeah, John, you comment on that? Where we might help them do a little bit of investigation.
What I
to,
find odd is that this has been going on since 2016.
And then
yes,
it goes down in the winter. So it's up in the summer and down in the winter. every
dramatically.
year. Yeah, every year, over and
That's,
over.
that's a 4-year period. It's interesting that just now they're asking for, some kind of credit when this has been going on for 4 years.
Yeah, they are asking for only for future billing, I think. Did they ask for retroactive anywhere in terms of billing relief? I don't think they did.
I don't think they did.
I didn't read their letter that closely, at least not recently.
No,
Yeah,
I think
just-
it's going forward.
Yeah, reducing the charge to residential. Anyway, and that's the other thing, we'd be setting a precedent here where we would have to include the whole class of churches, presumably. And the United Center, of course, no longer a church, but it's certainly, it's a busier place, and those numbers make sense. But nevertheless, that's my feeling, that we should go back and do that with the church. So does anyone, who was it that was a representative to the church that night? I can't find the
John
name.
Buckley.
Yeah, there we go. And yeah, if we could get back with him, I'd be happy to talk to him as well. And
Are they requesting relief, or are they just requesting not to be classified as commercial?
they were asking only for going forward from this point. I don't
They
see,
wanted their per gallon charge on water and sewer to be changed to residential for the entire structure. That would be the church plus the rectory.
yes, yeah, but again, but nothing, no retroactive relief. And so, yeah, so they're not asking for anything in the past on these previous bills, which is kind of unusual, actually, seems to me. So it seems to me it's pretty clear what we need to recommend, and it would certainly be to their financial advantage to do what we're recommending. And in a way, I'm kind of surprised they haven't done that, to tell you the truth. So, okay, any other thoughts on
Well,
that?
just one thing, we gotta watch how we word it, because we don't want to be struck by lightning.
Good point, John. Take that under consideration.
All right.
Get that down, whoever's scribing this.
It's me, Art.
Okay, all right, with no more comments on that, our big issue, of course, here is the pandemic update, and I'm not quite sure who would want to take the lead here, would this
Sure,
be
I think
Andy?
we'll tag team this.
Okay,
Mayor Pro Tem. We have been meeting as a management team daily since the pandemic restrictions began in the state. On March 16th is when things really started shutting down. And trying to navigate the almost daily changes in how to respond to this unprecedented crisis. And we have been able to carry on operations here almost seamlessly. As you probably know, we have shut down City Hall to the public. And but otherwise, operations have continued. Most of the services that we provide and the people who provide them are essential. All of our employees are essential, but as far as providing service to the residents, most of the positions are essential and have been here on the job. We do have a couple employees who have been able to work from home remotely, and that's working well. Everybody has been quite flexible and adapting and taking this situation seriously and just trying to see how we're going to continue navigating. I just sent out this afternoon the latest daily morning report and also the governor's new Safer at Home executive order. And and Carmen is on the line with us and she'll be weighing in here shortly. But that governor's executive order will be accompanied by a Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment more detailed directive, which will give some more guidance as to how we're going to proceed under the Safer at Home phase of this pandemic. We've been at the stay-at-home phase at the state level. That's been the mandate at the state level. That ended on Sunday, and the Safer at Home, which is loosened just a little bit, is in effect for the next 30 days. So I would like to ask Chief Malenka to weigh in here and maybe just give an overview of the operations of our management team meeting. He's been a great person to keep us on task with his background. He's been through major incidents before, and he has helped keep us as a management team on track with communications, with actions that we're taking, and I want to thank him for his leadership. And Mayor Hillman has been at just about all of our meetings. Bob Bolin, Mayor Pro Tem Bob Bolin, joined us today in the mayor's absence, and we've all worked together very well. And it's been important for us to meet every day to be discussing how we're going to adapt and respond. So, Chief, if you wouldn't mind giving us, again, the daily report's been sent out periodically. It was just sent out today, and maybe just give us an update. And then I'd like Carmen to speak as well from her perspective and on what's coming up.
Well, for starters, thank you for the compliments, Andy, but you're too gracious. It's been a team effort, and I still think of myself more as the keeper of the checklist. Every morning we do go down what amounts to a checklist. You see the product in the morning report. We've met every weekday since March 20th, which I think is pretty significant. For the most part, we haven't seen a lot of impact other than the economical impacts. People have pretty much steered clear of the town with all the road closures. But one thing that was interesting is yesterday when Safer at Home commenced, we did see a lot of traffic in town. Of course, a lot of businesses other than those that provide takeout or curbside services are closed. I think our impacts are going to be on our parks. We're going to have folks congregating in our parks. I recommend that we continue to keep those closed until we see even more relaxation. Again, our call load, surprisingly, our call load for the year is not that far behind than it was last year. I think we've got 200 fewer calls than last year, but for the month, our calls are way down, about 30% reduction in our calls for service. To the credit of the citizens of Idaho Springs, they've been very good about keeping the lid on, and we had concerns that people would get cabin fever and certain violations that are associated with people being in close quarters for long periods of time have really been limited. So we're really grateful for that. Moving forward, the management team, as part of the critical incident management, is looking forward towards recovery and how we can implement that in a safe, managed manner. And of course, that'll be a topic of discussion to come. So unless anybody has any specific questions for me regarding COVID-19, I'm going to go ahead and mute. All right.
Okay, Carmen, would you like to weigh in?
Sure. I Thank you, Andy. Good evening, all gathered. Andy correctly stated that, as you well know, for the past week, Governor Polis has sort of forecast a safer at home order that he was projecting to issue. He had a few press conferences to foreshadow what that might look like, and indeed, no rest for the weary or the governor. Yesterday, Sunday, he did issue that safer at home order. What is happening, as we've seen over the last month, the governor issues an executive order, which gives sort of a broad policy brush of where he would like to see the state go. And then the CPHE issues public health or a PHO that really fleshes out the governor's policy directives. Council and Mayor Pro Tem and staff and the public, it was this afternoon that we finally received from the CDPHE the public health order that gave more detail to the governor's executive order, the safer at home order. In a brief nutshell, and by the way, that CDPHE order is with all its attendant appendices and exhibits is over 30 pages long. So I have not yet, disclaimer, fully digested all of it, and I will be sending a summary that's more in depth to you, Andy and staff, and we can forward that to council and mayor and mayor pro tem as well. After I've really had a chance to thoroughly go through that CDPHE order. But a few highlights. It's a somewhat relaxed order, not a free-for-all. Things aren't open as they were back to normal again at all. Gatherings in public and in private commercial settings are still prohibited and capped at 9 or fewer. Face coverings are now to be required in public. It's somewhat status quo. Restaurants and bars will still be doing takeout and delivery only. Some significant changes and how this looks different than stay at home is that non-critical retail businesses, so those businesses that required to be shut for the last month, may now join restaurants and bars in offering curbside pickup. And then eventually for those non-critical retail stores come May 1st, those stores can once again be open to the public with very large caveat that those businesses must then comply with the CDPHE restrictions that again are in the public health order that I will brief you on more thoroughly later. I imagine there will be face covering requirements in stores, maybe temperature screenings. We shall see, and I will provide you with more information on that. But to touch upon something that the chief mentioned that I know is high on the county's radar, our parks, our county's lovely recreational opportunities. We may indeed see an impact locally under this relaxed order. However, I noted with great interest in the governor's executive order that he has directed the CDPHE to promulgate rules that limit recreational travel in the state to a maximum of 10 miles from your home. So if folks are truly complying with the governor's order and with the CDPHE's implementation of that, we should not see locally folks from further than 10 miles away come up to our parks and open spaces to recreate. Now, enforcement of that is always the trick. And maybe it's educating people that, hey, look, you're still supposed to stay pretty close to home to recreate. But that's a little key component in the governor's safer at home order, at least for jurisdictions like ours, where folks may want to indeed travel to recreate. We're not there yet. And perhaps that's the message to folks outside of our own community. Once again, that's kind of broad brush strokes of the state's action on safer at home, which has, golly, it's not even 24 hours old. So I will again be giving you further guidance on that over the next day. Then pivoting to what's in your packet, Mayor and Council, if I may, you see that Andy and I have talked a little bit about workforce issues. And as Andy just said, we've been fortunate and blessed enough to sort of continue to operate as we have up to now. And we do think it's wise, though, Council, to ask you to think about workforce management and personnel management and the budgetary impacts that the city may have as a result of this pandemic. And as you can see, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, in the memo from me in the packet, what Andy and I have talked about is, gee, what if it just becomes responsible and prudent and maybe eventually necessary to have some workforce reductions? Of course, we would like to do those reductions and manage them in the least impactful way possible for our valued city employees. Maybe furloughs of a limited duration or 1 day a week or nothing is decided yet clearly. And what Andy and I would like to ask you this evening is, are you interested in possibly, Council, delegating to the city administrator the authority to deal with these sort of workforce management issues? Because as it stands, Council, you would ultimately be responsible for that. The department heads, as you know, currently have the ability to manage their own department workforces. Clearly, that means department heads could have differing philosophies and approaches to their workforces. If you, Council, would like to have a more unified approach to workforce management issues like furlough days for the limited duration of this state of emergency and this pandemic, to the extent you want to have a uniform citywide approach to those issues, as you can see in the memo to me in the packet, I would suggest that you consider delegating that authority to your administrator. You do not have to. It is entirely up to you. But that's an issue that Andy and I in particular wanted to raise to you this evening. So with that, I open it up and invite you to ask any questions of me or City Administrator Marsh that you might have.
I have a question going back a little bit to the 10-mile limit. I assume that's
Sure.
purely for non-essential travel.
Indeed.
Okay.
What Mayor Pro Tem Bolin, what the governor's executive order says expressly is recreational travel is permitted. Yep, to 10 miles. Absolutely. You are engaged in critical business or critical function, or are employees who are performing critical government functions. Indeed, you may travel more than 10 miles from your home. You bet.
Okay, all right, thank
Yep.
you. Andy or any of the department heads, I was wondering about input regarding the possible temporary change in the workforce schedules and hours and how to handle that.
Yeah.
And Andy, let's start with you.
Well, I was asking Carmen, the way this discussion started is, what if we eventually get to a point where we have to consider furloughs or layoffs? How would that work, the way we're structured here in our city? And as Carmen said, we have each department head that who reports to mayor and council. And how would we handle that? Would that have to be done by a resolution from council to implement such an action? And we just that's how the discussion got going. And under these unusual circumstances, do we want to think of an alternative way or a more efficient way to make some of these changes or not? I'm jumping ahead a little bit here by saying this with the budget discussion, but we'll be getting into that next. But I really think we're in this for the long haul, and there's no clear indication of when things are going to start getting better. The safer at home governor's order doesn't change a whole lot for our city. I mean, it does open up some shops in town that may want to open and are equipped to do takeout, if you will. But I would offer that quite a few of our businesses in town, shops in town, are going to have probably a tough time. Although I've been proven wrong, a lot of our businesses have gotten very innovative and creative with how to generate sales, even under very extreme conditions. So, I just wanted to start the discussion about the budget or the revenue shortfall and proposed reductions in expenses, reducing expenses. And then this topic came up, well, what if we had to do something with personnel, whether it's furloughs or layoffs as a last resort? So that's how this all came about.
Yeah, I can see for a consistent goal throughout the city and the various departments that this does make some sense. I just wonder if John or Chris, either of you have any thoughts on this. Chris, we'll start with you.
Okay. Yeah, we of course we have thoughts. All the officers are prepared to, make the sacrifices. Right now, we're looking at a 10% cut in everybody's pay. For the non-salary people, that would mean an extra day off every other week. And we can facilitate that. What we need to do, though, is balance. We don't want to cut our staff so much and so that we're having to fill gaps with overtime. It's sort of self-defeating. So, our plan as far as staffing goes, Mark and I are both willing to, take a 10% reduction in our pay, which would be, equate to one day every other week. In my case, it really doesn't matter. I mean, I'm still going to be here 80 plus hours of pay period. So that's not going to have a detriment. And I will still be, one of the officers that during those gaps when there's only one officer or they're otherwise tied up, that I can come out on the street. So in that light, we're prepared for it. We've already cut some nice to have things off our budget. We fortunately, we found some great savings in our communications equipment that we didn't anticipate, that had nothing to do with this emergency. So there was a little bit of savings there. So yeah, it's just going to be a balancing act. What are we willing to sacrifice to save those dollars? And once again, if every officer takes one day off a pay period, I think it'll be very manageable for us. I can't speak for Mark, but I'm prepared to take a deeper cut if it means keeping the other officers on.
Okay, thank you, Chris. John, any thoughts?
I agree with Chris. I've talked to the guys, and everybody is willing, to take a furlough day, one furlough day per pay period. I do really think we need to really scrutinize the budget, which we have. And I've told everybody, unless we absolutely need something and it has to be done, we're not going to do it.
Right.
We have to maintain everything. Of course, we have to maintain water, streets, sanitation. But if it's absolutely not necessary, or if we can do it without hiring somebody outside, then we will attempt to do it.
Okay, yeah, well, our essential services and a consistent approach and keeping employees on to the last. Yeah, it seems like, but I don't have any problem with this. I think maybe we need to talk about this a little. We don't need to make a decision.
We do not need to make a decision. Again, this is the last option.
Yes.
But I felt it's significant enough that I wanted to discuss it early in the game. We've already had a couple meetings with the department heads, the mayor and I, about finding cuts to expenses. And that's what we're going to talk about next in this work session. So we've made good progress. It's a little bit of a guesstimate about how much revenues have gone down, and we can all project or have some thoughts on that. But we know it's very significant. And based on projections that I'll talk about next, once we get to the budget discussion, I think on the reductions that we've already found, I think we can handle the month and a half we've been in this mode, maybe the month of May. But then it's going to be hard to find, I think, getting harder and harder to find any other cuts and not affect essential services to the community. And that's our duty and responsibility to maintain those services any way we can. So at some point, particularly if this continues to affect the revenues of our city, I think we're going to have to start looking at personnel to help make up some of this difference. And it's going to be painful, but I think I just wanted to give a heads up early on in this discussion to council about this concern.
Well, I think presenting a consistent face on the situation to the employees as well as the public is critical. So I don't really have any problem with the suggestion. I kind of did at first, but I have sort of resolved in my mind that I think it's really worth looking at.
Okay.
And so we'll talk about that definitely later, not much later, fairly soon. But that just gets us right into the revenue for 2020. So let's go ahead with that.
So I know Carmen's going to drop off after this discussion of the COVID-19 response. Any other thoughts or concerns while Carmen's still on the line about this?
Well, this is Art speaking. From my limited experience with the city staff, it seems to me like we've got some very sharp department heads that really know what they're doing. I don't know so much about the water and sewer department for the comment, but on the police department, I really would be very cautious in mandating to the chief things that would be unsafe for the community in regard to his staff. And I think we've got to be very, very cautious there. And I know you guys communicate well, and that's nice to see. And I think you're honest with each other and forward. But at this time, I would just think that the way the chief has to do things with the state troopers as well as the county police, there's kind of a mechanism between those three organizations that sometimes would go beyond what we may see from a department head with his workforce because he's stimulating ideas and doing other things with these other enforcement agencies. So I think we got to truly be very cautious there. And I just bring that up for edification.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, does the city need to make a official statement on where we're at? We're agreeing with the governor, going to, taking it out of stay at home, or I mean, we need to make a statement.
Good question, Councilor Curtis. I can address that, Andy and Mayor Pro Tem. Council, to address that question, are you required to make any sort of a local statement? No, you are not. Could you? Absolutely, if you wish. But you're definitely not required to, Councilor Curtis. And what would be the results if you did not make any sort of a statement or adopt anything locally is we as a city would be under the state's safer at home order as of now. And then certainly if Clear Creek County decides to do something countywide, which we have seen them do before, right, with the restriction on county roads, then certainly as within the county, we would be under that order as well. And then we would be sort of putting those two pieces of the puzzle together to see what in total restrictions we as a city would be under. And if they conflicted, I would imagine, then certainly the more restrictive regulation, whether it's the counties or the state, would apply. Under the governor's Safer at Home executive order, he expressly recognizes local authority, county and municipal, to be more restrictive than the governor and the state is being right now. The governor is relaxing stay at home with the express knowledge and recognition that different pockets in the state are experiencing very different things in terms of infection rates and death rates and availability of tests and all kinds of things that affect how quickly people believe that we can get back to somewhat normal. So we as a city, you as a city council could adopt some stricter regulations than the state has. If you wish to simply, right, go along with what the state is doing and what the county may do, and I'm not aware that they've done anything yet, then Councilor Curtis and the rest of council, you are not required to issue any statements or take any other further action.
My concern was the citizens don't know where we're at. You know, are we still stay at home or we, you know, stay in place? You know, that's what I mean. Just the citizens want to be informed.
You bet.
Where our stance is.
Yep. And you know, Councilor Curtis, we, Andy and John and Diane and all the folks in City Hall and folks who are responsible for maintaining the city's website do endeavor to post the most up-to-date information that we as the city have on the city's website. And so I will absolutely tomorrow, if not tonight, do my best to provide a summary of the state's regulations right now in a more easily digestible sort of a format. And I'll invite Andy and Diane to post that if they wish. We can also provide a link directly to the governor and the CPHE's orders for those who are really itching to read some dry material. So we can provide absolutely as much information as we have, and we gladly do that, and we'll share that with the public as well. I speak for Andy. I know I speak for Andy and John and Diane on that as well.
The executive order is on the website currently on the COVID page. We just don't, in your summary, I think would be a great addendum to that. It was also listed in today's morning report.
Great, great. Thanks, John.
And I think what might be helpful, along with what Councilman Curtis is asking, is, John, is maybe a statement along with that, that unless we get other direction from mayor and council, that is the cities we are following up, you know, we have to, but that has been our practice all the way through this to date, and going forward, we intend to follow the safer at home directive.
Okay.
So maybe that might just help clarify.
Yeah, that should, I would think, satisfy John's inquiry. Yeah, if that's all on the website, there's not much else we can do at this point, I think, without spending more money. We don't want to mail anything, that's for sure. Okay.
Yeah, one other thing on this topic.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
One other thing I might mention is we have asked, the city has asked for letters of interest to serve on a recovery task force, city recovery task force. The letters of interest are due April 30th, which is this Thursday. And in order to get this task force stood up as quickly as possible and to start the discussion about recovery, as slow as it may be, particularly with the summer coming, I'm suggesting that we have a special council meeting next Monday to consider the letters of interest that the city has received, and maybe consider some other individuals who may be willing to serve, and get that task force going with maybe its first meeting as early as later next week. I think it's critically important that we've been in the response mode for the most part so far, the last almost 6 weeks, and I think that response will continue. We'll keep meeting daily as a management team as far as how to deal with COVID-19 response, its impact on the city. But I think we need a diverse group of residents and business owners, people who know this community, and to start thinking about creative ways to, as you've heard it again and again, the new normal. And I think that's not too extreme to say the new normal, because I don't think we're going back to the way we were. I think it's going to be different, and we're going to have to adapt, just like the businesses and the residents in our town have adapted. So just wanted to mention that and give you a heads up that I'd like to have a special council meeting next Monday to appoint that task force.
Okay, then my question is that we do need an official meeting to take that action, not just a work session, to make it happen sooner
Yes, that's
officially.
correct. And maybe what we might do, Mayor Pro Tem, is have a brief work session before, maybe 6:30 to talk about it, and then take the action at the meeting.
Yeah, an even more brief regular meeting.
I like
perhaps.
it.
Okay. All right. All right. Guess with that, any other comments on this subject before we move on to the budget shortfall? Okay, we've segued into it pretty well anyway, so go ahead.
Okay. So in your packet is you'll think you're in budget season, which it really isn't too far away. We'll be starting work on the 2021 budget in June and July, believe it or not. So it's right around the corner. But what you have in your packet is a spreadsheet of our adopted budget. And if you've had a chance to glance at it, very similar to our budget preparation process each year. The first column there has the actual spent in 2019. The second column has the actual budgeted for 2020. The third column has the actual year to date, and that's at least several weeks old. Just keep that in mind. So that's a little dated. And then the last column, proposed 20 reduction. This is a product of the department heads getting together and us having discussions about where can we make some cuts to address the shortfall that we're already experiencing, the revenue shortfall we're already experiencing. So on the revenue side, that's a question. I mean, my best guess, and talking about it around the table, is 85 to 90% sales tax reduction. The only sales tax generators, significant ones, still in operation are Safeway. We have the convenience stores, and we have some restaurants that are doing takeout. So we're fortunate to have that sales tax still coming in, but we know it's a major reduction in our sales tax. We will have a better idea in early May when we get the sales tax report for March. And as you know, there's a 2-week or two month delay in the sales tax reports we get from the state. So again, we'll have some real numbers about what the impact was in March. And of course, for half of March, we were pretty much shut down. We were dealing with the pandemic. So that 160,000 that you see on the first page for decrease in sales tax, that may be a little bit high. I don't know, because it's just a guess. I'm hoping that's a little bit high, but that's for about 6 weeks. I think that may be what we see lost in sales tax for half of March and then April. And of course, we have 2 other funds that receive sales tax, which are later in the budget. We have the improvement fund, which receives 1% of our sales tax. And that, of course, would be half of that number. And then we have the street fund, which takes the other 1%. We have 4% sales tax, 2% goes to general fund, 1% to the improvement fund, 1% to the street fund. Fortunately, in the general fund, we have other significant revenue sources, and that will help us with our general fund. The improvement fund, we have some carryover from how that fund had built up in years past before we actually started some of our capital projects. So that had built up, and then we have our street fund, which our street projects are wrapping up towards the end of May, and but then we have the bonds we'll have to pay back there. So so sales tax is comprises about 61% of our general fund. And again, I'm estimating, and of course the big unknown is what the rest of the year will bring. So I just ran some numbers and looked at, okay, what if we have, I'm told to look at the camera.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Looking at the screen, so I can look at you all. What if we have a gradual return to business as usual here, which is, I think, the most likely scenario. I don't know for sure, but I think what's most likely is we're going to have a gradual climb back out of this. That'll take at least the rest of the year, if not longer. So based on that scenario, I am just estimating at year end, we could see as much as a 33% decrease in the general fund, which could be a big number. Now, I'm hoping it's better than that, but I'm tending to be a little bit more pessimistic in my numbers, and I hope that maybe some of the actual numbers will show that I was a little bit too tough with the numbers. Good news is that we have 9.5 months, according to our auditor, we have about 9.5 months of reserves. And we budget, part of the budget process and city policy, we budget for 2 months. But as far as total reserves that we have, it's about 9.5 months. And the statewide average is about 6 to 7 months. So that's good news. And certainly it's a council decision as we begin this discussion about reducing our expenses, we can also look at using some of our reserves. But my concern is that if this is a longer term event, which is most certainly will be revenue, financial impact on the city, that we can't overly depend on our reserves. Our reserves need to be there for whatever comes our way. And so our first step as a management team was to look at our individual budgets and see what capital projects can we cut, or delay? What operating expenses can we cut or reduce? And how can we continue maintaining essential services? So what I would like to do, unless you all have a different thought, or Mayor Potem, if you have a different thought, is I'd like to just go through the budget, allow department heads to chime in on their particular budgets. When we get into some sections of the budget, it's kind of a combined discussion because we've got improvement fund, which has public works projects, it has police expenses, capital expenses. So I just thought we'd go through here. We just would like to get, some of these are pretty straightforward for the department heads to make. We can find savings in our budgets as part of our job, but there are other decisions such as community promotion items and capital projects that we want to make sure we get some direction from council that it's okay to make those cuts, or you'd rather have cuts somewhere else. So I see this beginning of an ongoing process to keep looking at our budget for 2020 over the upcoming months, as we have an eye toward looking to start to prepare the 21 budget. So if that sounds like a good plan, any thoughts so far?
And I agree with you on the revenue side anyways, to just build it for worst case and then hope it's better than that. I just agree with that completely.
Okay. Ready?
I second that.
Okay. All righty. Well, if you're okay, just kind of walking through the budget, hopefully you have a copy in front of you there. If you don't mind, we'll just go through. We got the pages numbered, so I know the account numbers can be kind of tedious to track when you're trying to find a place in the budget. So we have page numbers. So maybe we'll start with we talked about the revenue side. Let's go to page 2. And John, do you want to talk about streets expense?
So in streets, we started with engineering, which is 1010-5103. And we just put that in just in case there's something that comes up that we do need throughout the year. It was slated for 10,000. I cut 8,000 out of that. Survey, typically, again, if we have to have something surveyed, if somebody requires a reservoir or something to be surveyed, we cut that. Maintenance services and repairs for our equipment, I cut that by 2,000. Going on down, 5208, maintenance repairs, buildings, 1,500. Training, we cut that in half. Employee incentive, and this was across the board with all the departments. We eliminated the annual bonus, the rec center pass, and the holiday party. 5304, dues and publications, took 100 off of that. Equipment rental, we cut that in half. Material supplies, office, 1,000 off of that. Tools, cut that in half. Street lamps, we cut that. Signs, we were planning on this year to replace all of the downtown street signs, the wooden ones, with something different. We're going to cut that also, half of that anyway. We do have to have some signs in there. Paint, I think we have enough right now for the striping in the parking lots. So I cut that by 1,000. Asphalt, curb and gutter, we had 30,000 in there. I cut 20 off of that. So we will have to do some minor patches where we've done repairs. So other than we're not going to repair the curbs downtown and replace them this year, if we do have any more water line breaks, sewer lines that we have to dig up, we will have to patch the roadway. So we cut that by 20,000. Downtown pavers, 500, I cut that. Tree trimming originally was 3,000. We took that to 2,000. fleet tires, to cut that in half. At this time, I don't anticipate have to replace any tires, so that could be completely cut. Other than the 877 we've already spent. Equipment purchases, we're not going to purchase anything additional equipment. Office computer, I don't see anything that we have to have. I cut that by $300. So in total, just in streets, that's about $56,400.
A substantial amount, no doubt.
All righty. Any questions for John?
Yeah, just, this has to do with a lot of other departments too, and that is, fleet fuel. I'm just guessing the way things are shaping up, because of the slowdown worldwide, we probably were going to have some savings. I know the police department has quite a bit in fleet fuel. You had about $13,485 last year, and I know nobody can predict the future, but it does look like oil prices and fuel prices will be depressed. So that'll
Exactly. Right now, with the price of gasoline, that should drop considerably. Also, last year we were purchasing fuel in town, and we went back through the county this year. I think we get a better price on it, and we don't pay the taxes up front and then wait to get them back. So
Yeah.
the department went back to the county to get fuel.
Okay, moving on to administration. Overtime, we've cut all the overtime. We have the ability, unlike police in some situations and public works, where they just have to use overtime to keep the staffing levels at the appropriate. In admin, we have some flexibility where we can flex schedules. The ability to flex schedules if needed. For instance, if Wonder is attending a meeting this evening, we can flex her hours at another time. So we have that ability. We're going to use that. So we cut overtime, and every department has looked at overtime and trying to have savings there as much as possible. Repair, building maintenance, we've cut $1,000 from there. Education and training, we've cut that in half. Again, employee incentive, eliminating rec center passes, annual bonus, holiday party, that applies to all departments. Under election, this is an unplanned expense. We had 2,000 budgeted. Diane, as you'll see in her report, is has determined that we total spent about 13,500 for the special election, the recall election. So that's net of about 11,500 additional cost that was unbudgeted in administration. Boards and commissions, we're cutting most of that. That's used primarily for training for boards and commissions. We have been fortunate the last couple of years with John Kane's help in getting grants to send our HPRC down to the Saving Places Conference. I know I need to look over here. Saving Places Conference. And so that has saved us money, and that's why we didn't use much money in that account. So thank you for that, John. Travel and meals, we're not going to be doing much of that, so we've cut that by 2/3. And let's see, flags, I think we have a small supply of flags. We try to replace our flags here at City Hall, the Visitor Center, and a couple other locations. We have to replace those at least annually. So I think we'll be okay by cutting that by $500. Computer software, we're cutting that by $3,000. So the total savings is $12,300, which is unfortunately just about offset by the recall election. So it's kind of a wash there.
That $3,000 for computer software, where that was upgrading for what, Casal or?
That's for various things. It could be for GIS. There's an annual
Oh,
cost for the GIS,
for planning
things
as
like
well.
that.
And
And we usually
okay.
have, we try to be, when we do our budgeting, to make sure we have a little bit of leeway on some unexpected costs, particularly like software, computers, things like that.
Well, you still have some in there. Okay.
Any questions on administration before we get into community promotion?
Last meeting, I mentioned, it'd be 10/20/41/01, that I don't receive any compensation starting April 1st for being on council. I know it's not much, but
Okay.
until this thing's over.
Okay. All righty. Community promotion, and this is where we really need to get some input, some direction from council. Took a hard look at this. We found a good bit of saving, what we think could be some savings here, but it does have an impact on community promotion. So, but again, things are going to look very different, I think, as we get into the summer than what they've been in past summers. Visitor center, that first line item. Visitor center, as you probably know, has been closed since the restrictions were implemented on March 16th. I did speak to Genevieve Palmer today, their executive director, and reassured her that at least in this first round of cuts that we're proposing, we're not proposing to cut their operational expenses, but except for offsetting when they weren't open. That's where some of those savings come, knowing that they're saving some personnel costs there. So that's what that reflects, that $8,000, that cuts part of what they would get. Miscellaneous events. This was kind of a new line item, if you will, a new initiative. We were hoping to have maybe a couple concerts in CRC Park since it's been redone, and we'll probably have some really nice grass and also movies in the park. But those are both things nice to do, but we certainly don't have to do and probably couldn't do this summer. This is another one that's a tough one, and we're just throwing it out there. The KGOAT annual fee, whether or not to continue that donation to KGOAT. KGOAT has historically provided emergency broadcasting services, and that's part of the reason for that city contribution, as I understand it. But certainly, the way we looked at it as a staff, everything's on the table, and we just wanted to throw that out for consideration. Mayor and Commissioner awards. This is another tough one because it does typically benefit city residents who are in need, and it's a very worthy cause. Tree lighting, that's certainly a nice to have, but we can certainly run a tree lighting in the Saturday after Thanksgiving on a shoestring budget, and I think we could eliminate that $1,000. Miscellaneous organization requests. The census count donation, that was an appeal from the county last fall during our budget process, as you may recall. The county asked if we would contribute to the countywide census count effort, and the city agreed to that, and that is in our budget, and in fact it is in your accounts payable for approval tonight. Other municipalities, I know Georgetown gave a contribution. John, do you know who else gave a contribution?
All the municipalities did, as well as Clear Creek Economic Development Corporation and Freeport McMoran.
Okay. So we felt, I think the reasoning was we felt it made a lot more sense for us to have a unified county effort than to each of us go our own way. And John has been our staff representative to that committee that has been working to get the count, get as good a count as we can. Then there's our annual donations for Dynamite Days and Pumpkin Smash. Those are $1,000 each. I guess it's in doubt. Dynamite Days is a joint effort with the Chamber of Commerce, as I understand it. There's some question whether that would happen even if things got better. Am I right about that, John?
We're discussing how it would look. It would definitely be different than it has been in the past.
And just as a reminder, John Kane is vice president on the chamber board and also serves as a city voice on the chamber. So thank John for that. Now down to beautification. The flowers have been ordered.
That's a shame.
Go ahead.
Well, you know what I'm going to say, Andy.
Is that John Bordoni?
Yes, it is.
You're supposed to stick to the script, John.
I still don't agree with the flowers. Maybe we do need them, but they're extremely labor intensive if we're talking about furloughing people and then spending $8,000 on flowers. I understand they've been ordered, but.
We did cut the cost somewhat. The original order was around 8,000. I've worked with the vendor and we're now around $7,200 for the flowers. I know that's not a lot either, but one of the issues that we've had is that we had ordered the flowers and they'd already purchased them in good faith based on our order. And, you know, there's been some question about, you know, how correct it would be to cancel that order after they've already spent the money on it.
We ordered in February, did we not?
Correct. Like right at the beginning of February.
Yeah, okay. Oh, early February, okay. So that, yes, that would not be good, probably.
Yeah, who's gonna see the flowers? Nobody's gonna be in town.
Well, hopefully a few.
Yeah, well, I know, but I agree with John. That'd be one place I'd cut to.
Yeah. However, to tell you the truth, I think legally we'd be on kind of thin ice by not ordering and then not taking it. So too bad Carmen isn't here to correct me.
Under holiday decorating, this is a big one, 28,000. That would cut all of our Christmas tree lighting, holiday lighting. As you know, the last couple of years, we've been under contract with a firm to do most of the tree lighting and other decorations in town. Historic sites and facilities, minor property maintenance, we were able to cut that. John thought we could cut about 1,500 out of that. 4th of July, another big one. This would be either eliminating our fireworks on 4th of July or delaying the fireworks. This is one we definitely need direction from council on because we under our contract, we're in the last year of our 5-year contract for fireworks, and we need to give direction to the Zambelli. Either we're going to cancel it or we're going to postpone it maybe until the Saturday after Thanksgiving, like we did a couple of years ago with the fire restrictions. If we just say we want to cancel this year and not do it, and we would get our 50% deposit back, which you've already paid, less 10%. So we would be out several $1,000s. We also have to make a decision about bands. We do have 4 bands that are reserved. A couple of them have deposits, and if we act soon, we can get those deposits back or maybe even reschedule if that's council's desire. Under building maintenance for the visitor center, eliminate the railing for the visitor center. That was something that's been recommended, the railing for the steps that go up to Minor Street, but that's certainly something we could put off, and we can also find some savings there according to John. So that 92,000, that's a pretty big number. We can, with those types of cuts, we can get savings under community promotion, but these are important to the community, a lot of these items, and I want to make sure we get council's input on them.
I would recommend that we stop the fireworks as much as we all enjoy them and take a hit on the deposit. I just believe that this is probably going to be prolonged. And frankly, I don't know that it's wise to have a lot of people congregating in the usual spot to watch the fireworks.
Is there any way that we could negotiate the fireworks with the fireworks people, being that this is such an unprecedented thing?
John, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I have a couple things. Yes, I do believe we could negotiate with them. We're in the final year of our contract with Zambelli, and we are needing to renegotiate either way. So I think he would be willing to do that with us. The other thing, and I'm not saying it's right, it's just a counterpoint. With everybody stuck in their homes, fireworks is one thing that could potentially be a community-wide event. I think a lot of people in Idaho Springs can see fireworks from their home without congregating downtown. I know there's also the aspect of, you know, the economics of the 4th of July and bringing people to town to shop. And so that is another piece of the question. It is a lot of money too, but I do think that we may potentially, if we delay the fireworks, we can still cancel them as well. So we may be able to, we have to delay them or cancel them by May 1st. So if we were to delay them, that gives us a little bit of time to figure out kind of the impacts of the shutdown and kind of what we're looking at. And then we could either cancel it or try to renegotiate. But we could just cancel it straight out too. I see the value of that as well.
May 1st is coming up pretty quick.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we need to make that decision tonight. Okay.
No, I agree.
Good.
Yeah. No,
Well,
let's
you not
delay
only
it
have the,
because we don't know. Oh, go ahead, Art.
well, you don't only have the people from our town. You have a lot of people coming up from Denver and the surrounding areas to see the fireworks, and I don't think that would be conducive to what we're doing as far as our health and everything. Even because July 4th isn't really that far off, and even if everything's relaxed, I don't know if we want congregation of large people, large groups of people around, and that is a lot of money. Maybe we can give everybody a box of sparklers and they can have sparkling at their home. But that's a lot of money. I agree with Chuck. I think we should eliminate it.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, and you're thinking not just simply postponing until Thanksgiving weekend?
But I guess I misunderstood. If we postpone it, if we tell them we're going to postpone it as of May 1st, do we still have another window of opportunity to cancel it for the afterwards, or are we dead in the water for that? We have to have it.
No, that is correct. If we just tell them we want to delay, we could say we'd like to, like we did a couple of years ago, we'd like to think about doing it the Saturday after Thanksgiving, for example. We could do that. We could still cancel. We'd have to plan on that 2 months ahead of time, but we'll know where we are financially, at that time. So.
Right, and we gave them a deposit, so they'll hold that deposit until that's to the second point where we can cancel it. So if we really need the cash, we can get that deposit back less than 10%.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. All right.
I would like to modify my suggestion. I guess we could wait until September, let them know if we're going to have it in November. But perhaps let them know that we won't be doing it for 4th of July is my suggestion.
Right. I agree with you. Chuck, you got to pay me for this, but I agree with you, Chuck.
Okay.
This middle road, it keeps our option open at no additional expense and all like that.
Right.
but-
Right.
We can still get those savings if we need.
Yeah.
Okay, it seems.
Sounds like a no-brainer.
I agree too.
Okay,
I agree.
Any other thoughts on the proposed cuts under community promotion, one way or the other?
There's no way we could redirect the flowers or offer to sell them to the public or anything like that, would there be?
Good
We've talked about that. There's any number of things we could do, and it's just a matter of figuring out how to get it done. We had modified our order this year in an attempt to make this whole labor intensive piece of this better. And so they're coming in a slightly different way than they normally do. There's questions about volunteers. We actually got them to volunteer to plant some of these flowers into our old pots, and that's how we achieved some of this cost savings. We had talked about maybe we could do like reinstate the flower sale and do something to recover those costs, but it's just everything that we need to do requires quite a bit of volunteer help, and that's where we run into an issue. And the thing is this thing hit perfectly just so that they had expended all the money for the flowers already. Zambelli, or not Zambelli, I apologize, Calabrese, who's our flower vendor.
I'm sorry, who was that, John?
It's called Calabrese. They're located in Arvada. The city worked with them for a number of years on this, and we have a pretty established relationship. And so the question is, you know, we're well into the growing season, and they bought those flowers on good faith. And the flowers do, back to that point about fireworks, if you are recreating within 10 miles of your home, the flowers might be something you see downtown that are, a normal thing. And I'm not saying that that is more valuable than the budget and making sure that we have the money, because the money is the most important thing. But we are in a situation where it's not just, we basically have entered into a contract with them. And so we would be breaking that contract essentially.
Yeah, I'm fine with the way it stands.
Okay, let's go into police because we're running short on time. Chief, you want to highlight your budget? Oh, you're on mute, Chief. Chief, you're on mute.
My apologies. So my spreadsheet's going to look a little different than yours because there are some things that have been added. If we go to the furloughs, we're going to save 10% on our salaries and hourly costs from this day forward. So, of course, it doesn't cover the previous quarter. So right there, we're looking at about over $40,000 if we go through the year. We have for training, we've reduced it from $6,000 to $1,000 or $5,000. We took $1,000 off, but I anticipate we'll be able to get it down farther than that. I've had a lot of luck with tuition reimbursement from the state, but also we're going to probably have to lean a little bit more to in-house training this year, and also take advantage of the online programs that are available to us. The employee incentives, we essentially eliminated that. We took the $2,250 off that. We've already expended money on employee incentive for awards that we anticipated we were going to use for the Lyle Wohlers awards luncheon, but we've elected to cancel that. So, we're looking at saving $2,250 on the incentives. Dues and publications, we were at $1,500, and we're going to drop $250 off of that. A lot of the dues and publications are not necessarily for, say, Mark being in the Colorado Association of Chiefs of Police. These are associations that have to do with specific disciplines, communications, the records keepings, the CORA organizations. Travel and meals. So we'd asked for $2,500. Part of that was to go towards the Lyle Wohlers luncheon. So we've essentially slashed that from $2,500 to $500. And that $500, we've already spent a little bit of that. We've got $474 in that budget. And that's to cover the meals for if the guys are out on an emergency and it goes over their regular shift, or when we bring the Colorado Rangers out to support us, we historically pay for their meals. Advertising, we've eliminated that altogether. That was $300. We've essentially taken that out. The only thing I can imagine we would ever need that for this year is if we had to advertise for another position, a vacancy. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Everybody seems to be very happy, and we have other free mechanisms of doing that. Our cell and internet service, we do have a subscription to cable television. The guys, really should only be using that for when there are emergency broadcasts. We're going to cut that. And we're also going to slash our subscriptions. We have 3 cell phones. One of them is a smartphone. 2 of them are flip phones. They're like $19 a month, but we're going to go ahead and cut that out. That will total $640 in savings. Public education and relations, we were budgeted for $900. We spent $160. We're going to cut that by another $250. Office supplies, I'm cutting this close, but we're gonna take $100 off of that. Investigative equipment, we're going to slash 500 from that. I do that because we purchased quite a bit of equipment late last year and stocked up early this year. So I think we'll be good on that. Uniforms, we're looking good. We're going to cut that by $400, but I think we'll find some initial savings. To be honest with you, we've been able to recycle a number of our uniform items that are in good condition. Ammunition, I'm going to cut that by $600 from $3,400 to $2,800. Fleet fuel, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm optimistic like Chuck. The cost of fuel in town got a little cost prohibitive, so we started going back to the county. We were buying it at about $2.30 a gallon, which was a bargain comparatively. But now we're able to get it for in town for about $1.80, $1.90. Plus the officers, when they're outside of town, they're filling their tanks up for about $1.70 a gallon. So I think we're in good shape there. Hopefully we'll see a good savings at the end of the year. Fleet supplies, cut that by 100. Computers and office equipment, cut that by 500. Communications purchases. This is like when the guys break a hand mic or we need a battery, cut that by $200. So our total expenditures, if we factor in the furloughs, will be a savings of $60,640 plus or minus. One of the things we're going to do for next year too, we did cut a couple of things out of the capital expenses. We're not going to purchase a rifle this year. And golly, there was another big one in there, Andy. I forgot what it was.
Maybe.
Oh, the radio equipment. Yeah. Credit to Detective Sonnenberg. We came in right now, we're at about 50% of what we anticipated our budget for radios would be. He was able to find us some savings. They were able to work out a deal where they would actually let us trade in our obsolete radios. And we've elected that we're not going to put radios in two of our vehicles, the new radios anyway, the Durango, and I couldn't see putting a 2020 radio system in a 2004 Crown Victoria. So we're going to work off our other radios for those two cars. One of the things looking down the road, I checked with Jimmy. He promises me I can get another 2 years out of my Crown Vic. So we're not going to ask for a new vehicle next year.
All right, Mayor and Council, we're just about out of time before we have to go into our regular meeting. What I would suggest, unless there are any last minute questions for the chief on the police department budget, is that we pick this up again next week at a work session before our special council meeting next Monday.
Good idea.
No problem.
Yeah, we need to carry on, take a 5-minute break here. So, okay, any last comments on?
Yeah, the federal government's been talking about not giving the states and the municipalities funding. I mean, that's where it seems to be standing. If that turns around and they decide to give money to the states and the municipalities for shortfalls from taxes, would we participate in that? Would we be able to get some of that funding?
We're not depending on that,
No.
council member, but we certainly are looking at that. I know Colorado Municipal League, of which we're a member, they're advocating very strongly for that. So that would be a huge help. Our biggest problem is not additional expenses from this pandemic, unlike the county. Our biggest problem, as you know, is the revenue reduction to provide the services. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hasn't been a particularly encouraging arena so far, that's for sure.
No.
So, okay, let's take about a 5-minute break to get into our 7 o'clock regular meeting.
Everyone, I'm going to mute the city hall one here for a second while we're in the break.
It's like 4 minutes.
Hey, Andy.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Scott.
You guys are.
Yeah, I won't be attending the regular meeting, right?
That's right. You did mention that. Thank you.
I'll talk to you this week again, probably.
All right. Very
Okay,
good.
see you, Scott.
Thank you.
I think your recovery task force is a great idea too, by the way.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
All right. Okay, Ron. Okay, all right, I'd like to call the regular meeting to order of the Idaho Springs City Council for April 27th. And a roll call, please.
Michael Cummins, Scott Pennell, Joe Carmen,
Yes, here.
Bob Boland,
Here.
John Curtis,
Here.
Art Cacavelli,
Here.
Jim Clark.
Here.
Okay, all right. We have a quorum, so pledge of allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. All right, agenda approval. And if I recall, there was an addition, I believe. So, okay, I guess we need a move to approve the agenda, first of all.
I would move that we approve the agenda for April 27th, 2020 meeting.
Okay, and second?
Second it.
Okay, first and second. And any changes to the agenda?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I did request an amendment to the agenda regarding my report and 2 requests for action.
All right, we'll add that in there. Make a note so I help me keep track of this, Andy.
I will.
And
And Mayor, I guess it's a question and a suggestion at the same time. We want to make an amendment regarding the fireworks change for July 4th.
assume that'd be under city administrator
Um,
on the fireworks decision.
I think we could just do that without a formal, we're just looking for direction from council, so I don't think we necessarily need a.
Oh, just to
action item on it.
postpone it.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
It's a matter of the date, not the action we have to take so much as
Okay.
the date. Okay, good enough then. All right, good enough then. So that really is sort of taken care of at this point. Yes.
And Diane, this might be for you too. Do we need to take any action on the 2 council members who were excused from the meeting tonight or no? Okay, didn't know. Okay.
Okay, with that, all in favor of approving the agenda with the changes? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed? Okay, it does pass. Conflict of interest?
Mayor Pro Tem, do I do this now?
Yes.
On resolution number 7, sir, for the agreement of services with myself, my business, and the city.
Right. Okay. All right, just have to recuse yourself. Would that mean simply muting or sending him away from home? No, I'm kidding.
Right, yeah, right.
Yes, and that's item 7, but actually resolution number 10, just to
10.
clarify.
Right, okay, that's correct. Yeah, I was looking at the resolution number only. So, okay, thank you, Jim. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other conflicts? Okay, good enough then. Thank you. Approval of the minutes of from April 13th.
I move that we approve the minutes from April 13th, 2020.
Okay, Chuck, a second, please.
I second it.
Okay, Art, thank you. Discussion, please. I did read these over, didn't see any. They were pretty short and sweet, actually. So, okay. Oh, no comments then. Let's go ahead and vote. That's from April 13th. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, all right, passed. Approval of bills to April 27th.
I would move that we approve bills to April 27th, 2020.
Okay, and who was that?
Shepherd.
Oh, okay, couldn't hear too well. Okay, and second?
Second?
Second.
Oh, okay, all right.
Who was that?
Comments?
Who seconded that?
Does me, Jim?
Okay,
Arturo.
yeah, some of us may be leaning back from the speakers a little bit, or from the microphone a little bit, or so, whatever, so if you can speak up. And I'm saying this for myself because my hearing aids are turned on max, so I'm still having a little trouble. And so not a big deal. We're doing pretty well. So, okay, comments or questions on the bills, please. I did not have any. Hey, any questions at all? All right, we'll call for approval of the bills to April 27th, please.
Michael Hellman, Scott Pennell, Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacabaley,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes with no dissenting votes. Thank you. Okay, proclamation regarding Teacher Appreciation Week, which I think is worthwhile, and what I'm thinking, I had that in here. I think typically on proclamations, particularly shorter ones, we do read those, if I recall. Oh, here we go. Thank you. Okay, so Teacher Appreciation Week, May 4th through 8th, unusual week for them, of course, like everyone. Whereas the Clear Creek School District RE1 employs over 55 licensed teachers and 60 support staff, currently serving 715 students in 5 schools throughout the community. And whereas teachers work hard in schools throughout the nation every day to provide safe, high quality, and a stable learning environment for children. And whereas the education teachers provide has the power to strengthen our economy, our society as a whole, by growing students who graduate prepared to become successful members of society and the workplace. And whereas teachers are being asked to do more than ever and are continuing to deliver important high quality education from a distance. And whereas teachers often do not receive the recognition they deserve for dedicating their lives to the children of the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Idaho Springs City Council hereby proclaims May 4th through 8th, 2020 as Teacher Appreciation Week throughout this community, and calls upon all members of our community to express their appreciation for the best educators who empower our learners and work to advance a visionary district. In witness thereof, set your hand to affix the official seal here, and that's from Mayor Mike Hellman, of course. So let's see, I guess we put this in the form of a motion or just simply a proclamation.
You know, I can't really remember. I don't think it's going to hurt to vote on this.
Yeah, okay, I think so. Okay. Well, first of all, if we're going to have a motion, a second on approving this proclamation, please.
I would move that we approve the proclamation for the Teachers Appreciation Week.
Okay, and second?
I second it.
Okay, thank you, Art. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
okay, thank you. All right, good enough there. And actually, this is, I believe in this a lot. That's for sure. I think most of us do. Underpaid and overworked in many cases, in my opinion.
I agree.
Okay. I had that backwards. Underpaid and overworked. Is that what I said or not?
Yeah, you said that.
Oh, okay. I thought
Underpaid and overworked, yeah.
I got that in reverse. Oh boy. Okay. All right. The next thing, we have no public comment tonight. Is that correct, John? No one's called in, either unscheduled or scheduled. All right, good enough then. Okay, planning and community development. We do have a letter from Barb Cole, I believe she goes by. And you've all had that in your packet. It would just a report as to what's going on. I'm not familiar actually with pretty much anything in here or much of it at all. I just wonder if there are any comments or questions on this. And she has certainly been on the job quite a lot.
Yes.
So she's filling in very competently for Alan, whom we all miss. So anyway, after having read this, I would just wonder if there are any questions or comments from the council or department heads. Nothing at all. Okay, I guess.
Mayor Pro Tem, one thing I might mention is that Barb Cole and Mike Davenport, our contract planners, will be meeting with our Planning Commission in a work session the first Wednesday in May. I believe it's May 6th, to just get acquainted with the rest of Planning Commission and to talk about some of the current projects, work that might be done the rest of this year, tasks for the rest of the year, desires of Planning Commission. So that is happening next Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item. Let's see, I believe we have nothing on ordinance. This one, city administrator report, please.
Actually, Mayor Pro Tem, we do have a resolution, resolution number 10.
Oh, yes, I did skip that, didn't I? Okay, resolution number 10, like a motion, we should have had a chance to read that and study it. So if we could have a motion second, then we'll discuss.
I would move that we approve resolution number 10, series 2020, resolution approving an agreement for services with Allied Towing Inc.
Second.
Second.
Okay. All right. Any comments on this? And maybe Andy, you could probably comment on this a little bit.
Actually, I'll defer to Chief Malenka if he has.
Oh,
comments
yes,
on
I
it.
guess
He's
Chief
the
would be.
primary user of this contract.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And I did see your comments, in fact.
Yeah. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, what we are doing is we're formalizing a work agreement between the police department specifically and Allied Towing. This is not anything that's new. There was an agreement that was in place for many years with them, but it's become somewhat antiquated. Although we're grateful to Allied, there were elements of that agreement where he was doing work that was supposed to be done by the police department. So we formalized that, and also we established a new standard. This is not a contract; it's an agreement, and I think it's very critical that we have this kind of agreement with a company that can provide services primarily in the arena of tow services. I believe council may be aware that the city of Idaho Springs, and specifically the police department, we're responsible for 4 miles of interstate. And unfortunately, that 4 miles of interstate includes Hidden Valley, which we have numerous collisions a year. But we also have to impound a number of vehicles related to criminal activity. So we need a vendor that has ample storage, that can store vehicles for in excess of 30 days and has a surveillance system. One of the other things that we require is particular response times. For our light tows, it's a 30-minute response time. And for heavy tows, it's 1 hour. Allied Towing is the only provider in the immediate area that has the heavy tow trucks. One thing I do want to point out is that this agreement in our partnership with Allied Towing precedes Mr. Clark's participation on the city council. I just want to rule out, I think it would be grossly unfair to penalize him in light of the great service we get from Allied, penalize him for actually, making the additional contributions of volunteering and participating in council. So I would ask you to approve this agreement. This does not bar other vendors from asking for similar agreements, but they have to meet the same standards.
And Chief, I think this is cleaning up one of the unequitable things. And that was, I believe last meeting, we're saying that Allied tows, for example, like motorhomes at a loss, which is, unfair. So that should rectify this.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, good enough then. Yes, and with the capability and the fact they're a local vendor, I mean, it has every reason to go with this. So I would entertain a motion and a second to pass this resolution, please.
Actually, Chuck did and John Curtis did already.
We did. Oh, matter of just voting then. Okay. All in favor of this resolution, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, unanimous again. Thank you. All right. Yeah, sorry I skipped over that. City Administrator, there we go.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, you have my report with one request for action if you so choose.
Yeah, and this is an interesting one, using the city seal on the attached letter of support for Clear County Collaborative Healthcare Center for the local coordinating council. And have we had a similar request for action like this before? I don't ever recall one.
I don't believe we have. This is specifically from the group that the county formed for transit needs. And John Kane has been a representative on that group. And this group has asked all of its members, which represents the public and the private sector, to sign on to this letter of support for the healthcare clinic from specifically a transit perspective. John, did you want to add anything to that?
That's correct. They just want to show a unified front. They're still working on fundraising for that clinic. And my concern was just having the city's seal on it. It's approving of the project, and I wanted to bring it to Andy, to bring it to you so that we could make sure that it's an
Yeah,
appropriate.
that's an official move.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no matter what piece of paper you have, there it is. And so, okay, well, that makes sense. So, all right. So if we could entertain a motion for approving the use of the city seal on the letter of support, would appreciate that. And
Mayor
a
Pro
second.
Tem, I would make a motion that we approve the use of the city seal on the attached letter of support for the Clear Creek County Collaborative Healthcare Center from the Local Coordinating Council, LLC, for transit, of which the city is a member.
Okay, a second.
I second it.
Okay, thank you, Art. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. City clerk.
Mayor and council, I formulated or totaled the cost of the recall election, and it had came pretty close to what was anticipated. So if anybody has any questions?
You know, Diane, it just seems like we hired a bargain. I
We did.
was pleasantly surprised, and Karen Goldman coming in at only $945. I was expecting a lot more than that, and I hope you felt that she really was worth that money.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she said right off the beginning there that it was half a labor of love for her, and she certainly proved it here, I think. So, all right. So,
Mayor Pro Tem, I would just like to give a shout out to Diane and Wonder in
Yes.
particular. We had other staff as well, but primarily Diane and Wonder Martell in our office, who worked very, very hard on this recall election. We hadn't been through this in a long time, and running our own election, it was new territory for us. And they really pulled together to make sure that it was done professionally, properly. I believe it was the right choice to bring in a professional consultant to guide us through this and make sure we followed all the rules, someone who's been through it before. And I think we did get a good deal, but I think it was also run very efficiently and properly. I had the opportunity to observe how it was being done at various stages. And you'll observe that half of our cost was just dealt with the ballots, the printing, the secrecy sleeves, the envelopes, the mailing, well, even a little more than half the cost. So, but then we also did, and this Diane did it, factor in administrative time as well here at City Hall, because it was a big impact on staff here at City Hall. So I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, that number of 160 hours rather surprised me. I knew it was a lot, but that 4 full weeks.
It was intense.
Yeah,
let me tell you.
that's really quite amazing. Okay, well, thank you from the Mayor Pro Tem as well.
Thank you.
So, okay, thank you. All right, let's see. Okay, nothing else you need to bring up
No, sir.
verbally, okay. Public Works, wait. Here we go, Police Department, don't want to skip. Here, Chris?
Oh, you're on mute, Chief.
Okay, my apologies.
We got you again.
I'll refer you to my report with 2 requests for action. The first is I'm requesting that the council approve payment to Motorola Solutions for the purchase of the new digital radios that went into the vehicles. The total for that bill was $11,525.80 to be charged to budget line item 21006026. That purchase was approved for fiscal year 2020 in our budgeting process last year.
Okay, so need to entertain a motion to fulfill this request.
I would move that we approve payment to Motorola Solutions Inc. in the amount of $11,525.80 for the purchase of 4 APX 4500 7/800 mobile radios.
Okay, second, please.
I second it.
All right, any further discussion? Questions? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? Okay, passed. Thank you very much, Chris.
Okay, and sir, I have one more. I have the second request for action, request approval for payment of, also to Motorola Solutions. This was for the purchase of an APX 8000 handheld radio, in the amount of $5,027.45. This radio is the next upgraded radio. Believe it or not, the radios we purchased in 2015 are going to become obsolete, and Motorola is going to stop servicing them. So we wanted to gradually start adding these radios to our inventory. Of course, they're compatible with our current usage. This would also serve as the department's spare radio.
Oh, okay. All right, would entertain a motion second for this request, please.
I would move that we approve a payment to Motorola Solutions Inc. in the amount of $5,027.45 for the purchase of an APX 8000 handheld radio.
Okay, second, please.
I second it.
Okay, Art, okay, thank you. Without further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Wait, should we do roll call on these, actually? Diane?
You really should, because you're spending that money.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Diane, I'll let you go through that. Thank you.
Do you want to do that on the first one as well?
I think we probably better, or we could probably,
Well, on the first.
yeah, we
motion-
need to do that. I forgot about that. Spending money like that, we really do need to do individual voting. So let's, I'm not sure about how
Go
we,
back to the first action
rescind.
item, perhaps?
yeah,
On
let's
the-
go
on
back to
First
the
amount, 11,525.80.
65 or 80, yeah. Let's go ahead and redo that vote. I'm not quite sure how to nullify it other than just
I'm gonna do it this way.
formalize it. Yeah, it'll simply confirm what we've done.
Michael Hillman, Scott Pennell, Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes,
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
And then the second amount to Motorola for $5,027.45.
Mhm.
Michael Hillman, Scott Pennell, Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
Done.
All right, thank you, Diane. Appreciate that. Yes, indeed.
One thing I might note here, even with these required upgrades to the radios that had to happen, this was an expense that had to happen this year. The chief had budgeted 42,000, but he informed me that we will have about $20,000 in savings with that upgrade.
Oh, my
So-
goodness.
so
Okay.
Way to bargain shop. Thank you, Chief.
It was all Sonnenberg.
Okay.
So
Wow, that,
So
yeah.
even with required expenses and upgrades, we're trying to find savings. So thank you, chief.
Yeah, that's a substantial one for sure. All right.
Good work there.
I just had one more question, just to inform us. So we took a roll call, and I'm just wondering, what is the dollar amount before that that is initiated? Like, is it $10,000?
Oh, you mean where a roll call is required?
Yeah.
It's actually almost any expenditure, is it not? Is there
Oh,
a
okay.
threshold?
I'm not aware of there being a threshold.
No,
but
I'm not either. I think anytime we spend money, I hope I haven't skipped any other expenditures where we sailed through them
Okay, thank
without a roll call. I'm very rusty at this. Mike Hillman has given me a free ride for 6 years on lack of running meetings, 2.5 meetings up till tonight. And I think the rust is set in big time. But anyway, that's all right. Okay, I don't think there were any others I'm aware of.
No, there's not.
All right, Public Works, Streets and Parks, John?
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, you have my staff report in front of you with no request for action.
All right. And we will continue the discussion about the going forward with the 2020 budget shortfall with the parks, probably right off the bat next week. Okay, thank you, John.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
John, would you maybe just say a word about the start of the sewer line project under I-70?
Currently, currently CDOT is planning on putting the line under I-70. They restriped portions of the I-70 around the 240 on-ramp over the weekend. And they will be starting that within the next couple of weeks. They will be doing an open cut across I-70 to take the sewer line from the bike path over to the dirt parking lot to supposedly get the sewer line out of CDOT right away, but it's still going to be going under the interstate. So a portion of that will be in there right away. CDOT has sent us an agreement that they will maintain that portion of line under the interstate. Chicago Creek Sanitation will be responsible for the maintenance from 103 south, and we will be responsible for the maintenance from where it enters the dirt parking lot east into our system. So that should start very soon. Portions of that will be done at night. They're trying to do a lot of the work during the day.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. Okay, that's it then. So any committee reports? I assume not tonight. Okay, and Mayor and Council, I have nothing at all. The mayor is, other than the fact that Mike is on a short vacation over to the West Slope, I believe Glenwood Springs, at least for a while. And so then he's going on to Grand Junction, I think?
He's visiting his daughter in Grand Junction.
In Grand Junction, that's what I was thinking. So, yeah, well earned. Okay, with that, we will adjourn at, looks like about 7:27. Wasn't record short, but not bad. Thank you, everybody.
Good
Good
job,
night,
Bob.
everyone.
Thank you.
Night.
Night.